Welcome to Sound of Resistance. The war between Ukraine and Russia continues unabated. As of beginning of this week, Russia has increased its aggression, especially against Ukrainian civilians, and has rained missiles on the cities where the Ukrainian people live, especially Kyiv. It has been reported by the Ukrainian General Staff and some intelligence agencies that the Russian army has few missiles left and that it has rained down on civilians. It seems that Russia will remain unarmed later in the war because Russia no longer has anyone to sell weapons and ammunition to. Russia is running out of weapons. Allies and troops as Vladimir Putin becomes increasingly desperate, said Jeremy Fleming, head of the UK Government Communications Centre. Sir Jeremy Fleming said that Putin's friends were exhausted as the Ukrainian army turned the war situation against the exhausted Russian army. Fleming said that the Russian military is currently not seeing signs that it's considering nuclear weapons in Ukraine, and admitted that intelligence would hope to see some signals if Russia plans to use nuclear weapons. Recently, Putin has once more again threats about the potential use of nuclear weapons to defend Russian territory. Speaking on this, Jeremy Fleming said, "It is very dangerous to talk about nuclear weapons and we have to be very careful how we talk about it. It seems to me that even though we dislike and in many ways hate the way the Russian military and President Putin are waging this war, the uses of these weapons, including nuclear weapons, remain within doctrine we understand. I'm sure Putin is worried about the dangers of rising tension. The Russian leader considers these dangers in different terms, but I think it's a sign that it's not reaching other forms of war," he said, stating that the ammunition of the Russian army has come to the point of depletion and its allies are definitely decreasing. Fleming said, "You can see the complete helplessness of the Russian people and the Russian army, but Russia is still very good at inflicting damage. We saw this situation in the missile attacks carried out by the Russians the other day." Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Russia has ordered another 2,400 Iranian-made kamikaze aircraft. Russia fires 20 or 30 Iranian-made kamikaze aircraft every day, many of which are destroyed by Ukrainian air defense units. The heroic resistance of the Ukrainian defense troops of the Russian attacks sparked intense internal criticism of Vladimir Putin and prompted hardline figures in Moscow to call on the Russian leader to use nuclear weapons. Although it has not been proven that the German-born theoretical physicist Albert Einstein predicted that a Fourth World War would be fought with stones and sticks after the Third World War, if Russia runs out of weapons like this, it will begin to attack the Ukrainian army with sticks and stones before the Fourth World War. The invasion, which Putin said will end in 2 weeks, did not develop quite as Putin envisioned. When Russia invaded Ukraine for no reason, some Russian commanders hoped to be greeted with flowers on Ukrainian soil, but what they encountered was the resistance of the Ukrainian people against them. Even before the invasion began, the Russians had removed their prehistoric weapons from their warehouses and re-registered them in the army inventory. They hoped the Ukrainians would throw Molotov cocktails at them. When war bells began to ring in the region, the USA, UK, and other NATO countries started to send aid packages to Ukraine. And in a very short time, Ukrainian army became a first-class army equipped with modern weapons. As such, the weapons and ammunition of the Russian army decreased day by day. Russia is now faced with the fact that it has essentially depleted its heavy ammunition reserves, while Russian soldiers are also depleted by nearly 8 months of the war. As a result, ordinary Russian citizens now realize that the invasion has been badly misjudged and that the cost of the nation has been overstated. In addition to the more than 60,000 Russian soldiers killed or injured, there is also the destruction and loss of large quantities of equipment and ammunition. In the light of these developments, every day the war continues, support for Putin is getting less and less. US President Joe Biden on Wednesday voiced doubts whether Russian President Vladimir Putin would use tactical nuclear weapons, while demanding a rapid increase in Western military aid to defend Ukrainian cities against the missile strikes. Vladimir Solovyov is currently one of Vladimir Putin's chief propagandists, but footage from 2008 shows Putin arguing that a war between Ukraine and Russia should never have happened and never will. Solovyov says in the images, "I must cite that there will never be a war between Russia and Ukraine, because anyone who seriously attempts to undertake such an act is guilty. What's more, I can't even imagine how big of criminal it would be. These are people living in fraternal spirit, blood and common history in Ukraine. A war with them would be the worst crime you can think of. We do not need to shout that Crimea and Sevastopol are ours. We just have to make life in our country so attractive that Ukrainians, Belarusians, Moldovans, Armenians, Georgians all come to live with us in peace." Vladimir Putin's authority was threatened as civil disillusionment with the ongoing war in Ukraine continued to grow within Russia. Vladimir Putin's orders to mobilize an additional 300,000 troops to continue his invasion of Ukraine caused chaos among the civilian population. The Kremlin has since been shaken by a widespread wave of anti-war demonstrations, and thousands of Russians have fled to the neighboring countries to flee, calling for mobilization. Russian political commentator Vladimir Ashurkov has suggested that as popular opposition grows, the new Kremlin leader, who replaces President Putin, will likely press to end the war in Ukraine and seek a civil relationship with Western powers, which the current leader despises. Ashurkov, a longtime ally of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, said those who come after Putin are more likely to improve relations with the West and the end in the war in Ukraine. This war is not very popular. People in the business and political elite have never seen in the lifestyle changes so much. They are well distractedly reduced. It's also very bad for the average Russians. The new president will not be as strong in authority as Putin, but he will have to fulfill the people's demand for prosperity and peace. Ashurkov added that to overthrow President Putin's power will require a well-coordinated and widespread operation at various political levels in Russia. There will probably be a coup d'état against Putin within the popular resistance and within the Kremlin administration, but we don't know when and how it will happen until it happens. Also, we cannot trust someone who will eliminate Putin in the short term, he said. According to the independent human rights organization OVD Info, anti-war protests swept through major cities in Russia and resulted in the arrest of more than 2,400 people the following week. Under pressure from an internal revolt, President Putin later admitted during the meeting with the Russian Security Council that mistakes had been made in the mobilization operation. Whatever Russia does, it is the losing side of this war. The Russians have no trump card in their hands other than their nuclear weapons, and the fact that the Russians constantly put forward this card in every positive result the Ukrainian army receives has now started to leave a bad taste in the mouth. If we go to this corner, the Ukrainian army will soon drive the Russians out of its borders, and the winner of this meaningless war will be declared as Ukraine. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching.